everybody. Welcome to MORE-VILLE, Orville, the podcast that reviews the Orville. This is Mike L, and I'm joined by G.I. Jolie.
Hi, I'm here.
And Champion.
Hi.
What the heck?
Ruh-roh.
You never know what's going to happen on this show. Anyway, so I don't even know where to start, but as an ongoing subplot of this podcast is that we've been getting disenchanted with our favorite sci-fi comedy, and Champion was on the verge of, he said that if he wasn't doing this podcast, he wouldn't even be watching the show anymore, basically, right?
That is a thing that I said, yes.
I will go on the record as saying that with this episode, not only have they redeemed themselves, this is one of the best episodes in the whole series, I think. But I'm not going to say anything else until, I don't want to jump the gun here. But as usual, Champion is going to tell us the 3-line summary of what happens in this episode, right? And then we're going to do our little review.
3 to 8 lines.
Do I have to come up with 3 lines? 3 lines sounds like an awful lot of lines.
Okay,
I'll just say however many lines. Okay, basically, the Orville goes to a planet where they do some Indiana Jones stuff. They're sort of digging around for some kind of tomb. While this is happening, Kelly and Topa bond over Topa's desire to take the Union Point entrance exam. Some drama occurs when Topa is having some feelings. They don't feel quite like themselves. They're not quite sure what's wrong. And it turns out that Topa is aware on some level that there's something different about them. And it comes out that Topa was born female, and all sorts of drama ensues between Bortus, who was never for the gender reassignment surgery in the first place, and Clyden, who wants to keep the entire thing a secret. In the end, Topa learns what happened, and things kind of blow up just a little bit.
Well, I mean, how do you talk about this episode without saying, we're going to spoil it, but it's one of those things where, because it says written by Seth MacFarlane. I don't know if he got help, but I think he really outdid himself here, because you have this idea that this character introduces this idea. Kelly is completely with Topa, but Kelly is at odds with Clyden, and Clyden is at odds with Kelly, as well as Bortus. Clyden and Bortus are both the fathers of Topa, because in their race there's only one gender, and that's male. This has been an ongoing subplot in the show about how all female Moclans are gender reassigned to be male. And this has been an issue that's been waiting to kind of bubble to the surface. And obviously we can forgive the sped up timeline of Topa aging 11 years in one season, right? Like, we're not going to care about that. Who cares?
We don't know how quickly Moclans age, right? This is something that wasn't explained. This is something that we could explain away in just a sentence, right? Like going to Deep Space Nine, the Jem'Hadar, reach adolescence in 5 days. So whatever, that didn't bother me. That Topa is as old.
But basically, this is like it's almost like a play. You have this issue, and every single step of the way, I feel like Seth MacFarlane kind of stayed one step ahead of us, I think. And just when you think there's no solution, a character will come up with something. And like in this episode, Kelly kind of arguably overstepped her boundaries, but she felt like she was doing the right thing. It gets to the point where Topa wants to have the gender reassignment, and Clyden refuses to allow that, even though Bortus wants to. And then it makes its way to the admirals of the Union, and they order Kelly and Mercer to directly not help, to not interfere, because it will interfere with the diplomatic relations with the Moclans, who have a treaty with the Union in order to help them in this war against the Krill. Is that what they're called, the Krill?
The Kaylon.
The Kaylon.
Well, and now the Krill, because...
And now the Krill.
They're understandably pissed too. But
right. And so at one point, Dr. I can't remember anyone's name. Dr.
Claire Finn.
Claire is like, okay, I've got it. we technically only are forbidden to do this because we're a union. But what if I just resign from the union and I'll be a private doctor and then I can perform the operation? And she was willing to completely give up her career and just be, a private doctor, not serve on the Orville. And I'm sitting here thinking in my head, oh, I guess this is going to be the new status of the show. But then Isaac comes in and goes, I have another idea. I am not a member of the union. I'm technically not officially a member. I'm an ambassador, so I can perform the operation. And then Mercer says, well, if you do, it can't be with, we can't have any knowledge of it. And so they come up with a brilliant and also comedic and also logical solution, which ties into a previous episode where we were about to see Bortus sing, and then at the very last second, he was cut off because I think they were called to a mission or something, right? Mm-hmm. And so in this episode, they decide, okay, I know what we're going to do. We're going to stage a concert, or whatever you want to call it, a recital, and everyone on the ship is invited, and therefore everyone on the Orville is in this one auditorium watching Bortus sing and what's the little kid's name?
Ty
play piano. And so every single member of the crew is in this room except for Isaac. So according to...
And Topa. Because at this point in the episode, Topa's not speaking to either of her parents.
Right.
So
yes,
she wouldn't go. Clyden wouldn't be there either, though, because he's really not speaking to Bortus. And why would he go?
Right. So on paper, everyone's covering their asses. So what ends up happening is Isaac tracks down Topa, proposes the plan to him, and then brings him to the operating room and is about to start the operation. But then just at that moment, Clyden comes in. Now, Clyden has already physically attacked Kelly, and Kelly, managed to outmaneuver him and basically forgive him, but threaten him and say, if you do that again, you're going to be in trouble, blah, blah, blah. Now Clyden comes in and tries to physically stop Isaac, but Isaac, since Isaac is an android or whatever, he's a robot, is able to fend off Clyden. The operation is successfully performed, and then Mercer and Kelly are reamed out by the Admiral, but at the end of the scene, the Admiral kind of gives a little... What does she say? Oh, by the way, I don't know.
Well, they think they've gotten away with it, which is kind of like what has happened generally in the show, like something, or in shows in general. And I've sort of been hearing or reading people's thoughts about it, about how it was nice that when they finally were able to, so at the end, when they think they've gotten away with it, Topa is now Topa. Mm-hmm. Reassigned or reassignment reversed, and then when they go to collect the artifacts from the surface of the planet, it turns out the Admiral who initially delivered the message that they were not supposed to do what they weren't supposed to reverse the reassignment, she is on the ship as well, and she wants to see Mercer and his first officer. This is not something like she's boarded that ship. And it's not something that usually happens. And then we see the most spectacular dressing down of a ship captain and their first officer by an admiral that I'm not accustomed to seeing. Because I'm accustomed to seeing everybody save the day and everybody being happy.
Yeah.
I really appreciated that dressing down scene, especially because she didn't soften it at the end. I was half expecting you guys are in so much trouble, and good job.
Right.
But we didn't get that and good job. It was just, you're in so much trouble if there's so much as a wrinkle in your uniform from now on, you're done. And then she basically stomps out and slams the door.
Right.
Which, okay, thank you for that, right? Mm-hmm. That was a powerful scene.
She did give she did say something at the end along the lines of "send my love to Topa" or something like that, which is fine because Topa is still kind of a victim in all this, and it's nothing against Topa; it's against you guys, and you guys still fucked up. So
So it's almost as she understood, but she's not letting him off the hook at all.
No, because they were at the end of the day. Oh, I hate saying that, but ultimately, if she was a vote for them performing the reversal of the reassignment, she was outvoted by the rest of the Admiralty. She says, "Give my regards to the girl."
Right.
And it's like, so obviously we know that this admiral, who we've never seen before,
and who I hope we'll see again.
right? Who I'm like, now I'm not really like a lot of people are bothered by the fact that she's a new admiral, and like we've only had very famous cameos as all the admiralty, but like I don't care. I like her the best.
Yeah.
And
I
then
agree.
it goes like, if we had to tier list them, it'd be like she would be like a S tier, and then it'd be like Victor Garber, and then Kelly Hu, and then Ted Danson. Sorry, Teddy, but like she was amazing. Just the way the one part of the dressing down that I am not accustomed to seeing, which was, they thought that they were in the clear. They were like, well, technically, you're right. Technically, if we don't know what's going on, hint, hint, we're in the clear. He's like, well, we had no idea. We had no idea this was happening. She goes, oh, I guess that means you're insubordinate and ignorant.
Yeah, it's not like in Star Trek where Kirk steals a ship and violates all these laws, and they're like, "You rascal!" Okay, but anyway, we'll see you in the next mission, right?
And what's more, like in the middle of this dressing down, she I forget what she said to Captain Mercer, but I think it was right after that, insubordinate and ignorant. Isn't that right? Yes, sir. What was that?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Made him say it louder. That,
Right.
like, I jumped up when I heard that. That was
Right.
so good.
Yeah.
That was so good.
And there's so much to talk about. So, I mean, everyone did a great job this episode, but let's break it down. Let's talk about Kelly, played by
Adrian Palicki.
Yes, and sorry, listeners, I do know these things. I'm just having my memory's gone today, but I thought
It's really hot here today.
Yeah.
Really hot.
Oh my
Really
God.
hot.
She did such a good job this episode. I thought she was honestly incredible. She outdid herself.
From beginning to end.
Yeah, I mean, the story arc, her acting, like the fact that, the frustration of seeing a child that's in this much duress. Like, basically, we forgot to mention this. Topa basically was asking Isaac what it was like to commit suicide. Like, this is some serious stuff, right? And so she felt like, look, I don't care about these rules. I don't care about Clyden. I feel like I have to help this kid. And I think Adrian Palicki handled this flawlessly. It was just so moving.
Lots of emotion. It was palpable, the conflict that she had.
Yeah.
Like you could feel that she wanted to do something, but that she knew that she couldn't do too much, and then her second guessing herself when she did reach out and leave that little breadcrumb for Topa to follow.
Yeah, so I mean, if we go from the start of the episode and then work our way through on that Kelly trail, it's like, and Clyden mentioned it. He's like, well, you must have some kind of god complex. Ever since you were considered a god, I saw all those things happen. You think you have all this power, and she's like, no, that's not it at all. Like, obviously, Clyden has an axe to grind with women, or just women, or just like the existence of the fact that he has to exist with women in general.
Right.
So far, he's the only crew member's family that we've seen, other than the two boys, the doctor's boys.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. That's a really good point.
So, and like on Star Trek, if they were traveling with their family, we saw them a lot more. If they weren't already part of the crew, Wesley Crusher. So, it's hard to. It was really interesting to see those dynamics being played between the crew, Clyden and Bortus, because they're sitting down to eat dinner. The first officer walks into his crew quarters, and Bortus is the only one that stands to greet.
That's a good point. Very subtle. Yeah.
A higher ranking officer, and Bortus sits there. Or I mean, Clyden sits there and does nothing, and is kind of like rude to her through the whole dinner.
before eventually kicking her out entirely.
Right,
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
go ahead, Julie.
Oh no, I was just gonna say that it was a really cool thing to see how somebody's like family who they're traveling with. We all know that everyone travels with their family in space. Like it's alluded to a lot, but we never see it. Mm-hmm. And we've seen it before, and Clyden has been played for laughs because Clyden is a funny character and Mocklins are kind of funny creatures. Mm-hmm. Or they're a funny species when they have to like encounter human-like culture. Mm-hmm. So having Kelly be the person who interacts, and especially with Topa, makes it kind of like, it made it really like powerful. And it also gave me like hope for space exploration in the future. It's like maybe I have to marry an astronaut. I don't know. Yeah.
So let's talk. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going somewhere with it, but it kind of trailed off in all my excitement.
Okay. Well, I was gonna say we could jump to Chad Coleman as Clyden. I mean, obviously, in the last 2 seasons, they've sort of built up Clyden to be less and less likable, and at this point, I mean, he's the bad guy. Like, I mean, he has almost no redeeming qualities at this point, right? Although he hasn't. And
he left at the end of the episode too, didn't he? Like this may be the last we see of him.
At least for now, it looks like it. And I mean, he's doing a great job at it, though, right? I mean.
Oh no, he was. His acting was incredible this episode. Right. He was a tortured villain in a sense. Like you could tell, you could sense his pain in terms of having gone through this sort of thing himself, and him wanting to spare his child, and every single person that he knows being completely against his point of view.
Right.
Julie? I know what I was going to say.
Okay.
Oh, no, lost it again. Wow, that's so strange.
It's the heat. It's killing us all.
For me, it's the really ice cold air conditioning, just like zapping it out of my brain.
Brain freeze.
The same thought came about when we started. Oh, that's it. This is a storyline that I thought was just wrapped up, like that they weren't going to address again. Like,
right.
I thought that they had finished it with Topa. They're like, cool. Topa's a boy now. Like, we lost the war in that courtroom. Mm-hmm. And it's over. And I thought, great. So this is just how this will be the status quo. And I didn't realize it until now, but until this episode has been sort of like this dark cloud that's been hanging over the Mocklins on the ship for me.
Mm-hmm. I kind of expected it to come back, and I'm just glad they did. Like they're really doing a good job of planting these seeds, right? Mm-hmm. That are sprouting into great storylines later on. It's just brilliant.
Mm-hmm. And if we're talking about characters, further to Ian's point about Clyden, Clyden was let's not forget, Clyden was also born a female and went through this. Mm-hmm. Found out that he was reassigned at birth, and we don't know what he went through because he doesn't talk about it.
True, good point.
He just says that it was painful, and he would rather spare in his words, his son the same pain.
Right.
Although that did that part did raise a question mark for me in terms of this. All right. Mm-hmm. I was a little surprised that Clyden, once Bortus acknowledged that, yes, Topa, you were born a female, I was surprised that Clyden didn't admit to her at that point, mm-hmm. because if anything would have helped his position, it would have been revealing that to Topa and saying, look, I've been here too, you can get through this, and to try to bond with Topa over it instead mm-hmm. of keeping that a secret. I don't think that keeping that a secret would, I don't think that helped Clyden's cause at all.
No. Yeah.
That's a good point, yeah.
It only served to create a more, fundamentalist character out of Clyden. Mm-hmm. This is what he thinks of women. he so staunchly believes that male Mocklins are superior because, or female, being born a female is deformity. That even he himself, who was born deformed, he can't even bring himself to talk about or admit it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And that's likely why I would imagine they had him not mention it.
Exactly, and I agree. It's nuanced and it's nice, and it allows us to talk more about it because I agree with Ian. Like, I think that Clyden should have told Topa that he was also born deformed.
But what would have solved that, I think, is if Bortus and Clyden discussed that off, like with Topa not in the room at the time. Like, well, you went through this. Why don't you tell Topa? Well, no, I would rather keep this with me to my grave because I feel that strongly about this, and I would rather this all go to shit than to admit that I was born female.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Exactly. Do we want to just... So, I mean, since we traditionally talk about new characters, technically, Topa, this version of Topa is a new character.
Mm-hmm. No, to be clear, this is the same actor, right?
Iman... Where is it?
No,
Imani?
Oh, sorry. Okay, there's an actor for the baby. That's not what I mean. But yeah, Sorry, go ahead, Jolie.
So Topa, current Topa, is played by Imani Pullum.
Okay.
Let's
come I don't
see if
see
I can
this
find
here?
any. You talk amongst yourselves while I try to find information.
Oh, Imani Pullum as Topa, female adolescent. Blesson Yates as Topa, male adolescent.
Oh, okay.
So is this two different actors then? Like in the current age? Yeah. Interesting.
That is interesting. I would have thought they would have just used one actor and changed the prosthetics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it seemed like they were modifying their voice.
It did, to the point that during the first half of the episode, before the direction it was going to take became apparent, I was a little off-put by Topa's voice.
Mm-hmm.
And they may have modified it anyway, just to have that sort of unsettling feeling.
Sure.
Right? Because it, like, once you heard Topa after her surgery, it was like, I don't know, it felt like a weight was lifted, in a sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In terms of the voice in particular.
Yeah. Let's see.
So, in my opinion, Imani Pullum looks older than the other actor. Oh, no, it says she's only 7?
What?
No. Sorry, she has 7 credits. Whoops. Okay, so in any case, it's 2 different actors. That's the important thing.
Okay. Got it.
But anyway, there's one more actor we absolutely have to talk about. He needs no introduction. Peter Masson? Is it Macon or Masson?
Macon?
Peter Macon as Bortus. Okay, number 1, we've been waiting for some Bortus laughs. We got a big one. The king is too high! Remember he screams at what's his name?
Ty.
Ty.
Okay, that was hilarious.
Yep.
Because even though he's the good Mocklin, he's still, there's no filter, right? Totally harsh, but hilarious. I thought that was so funny. Ian, what'd you think? I'm
on the fence about it. I'm on the fence about it.
Okay,
He's yelling at a little kid.
That's okay though, it's funny.
And it's really funny too that, I mean, not that it's funny to yell at children, but even Ty was like, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Let me change that key for you, sir.
If you go back to, remember the first time Bortus was supposed to sing, did he yell at Malloy, was it? No, everybody was kind of like chiding him, and he was like, "You will be silent." Remember?
Yes.
That's right. I don't know. I thought it was okay. I thought it was funny.
Yeah, he's very serious about it, and he was very
Right.
serious about this recital as well, which was nice.
Okay, let's talk about his singing now. Oh, go ahead, Jolie.
I was gonna talk about the song, but you can talk about the singing.
Well, I was gonna say he was great, right? Like we waited 3 seasons to hear him sing, and now we've finally heard him sing, and he sounded amazing, right?
He sounded pretty good.
Yeah.
He sounded pretty good.
I don't even know. I was going to Shazam the songs, but does anyone know what songs he was singing? Because one of them was like tear-inducing. It was so good.
Yeah. So the first one he sang was the one that he was introduced to by Claire Finn, which is Nature Boy by Nat King Cole.
And that's about Ric Flair.
Yep.
Okay.
Song, the 1948 classic about Ric Flair. But I mean, and the words are very like, the words are very telling about, like, you know what I mean? They're what's the word? It's not diegetic or whatever. It's they kind of narrate sort of or mirror what's happening in the plot.
Yeah, and I didn't hear every word, but it seemed like that's the vibe I got from listening to what he was saying. It was pretty amazing.
And I don't remember what the second song was.
Second song was "You'll Never Walk Alone."
Okay.
Made popular by Jerry and the Pacemakers.
Wonderful.
Nice.
Yep.
Okay, the other thing I have to talk about was, Bortus is known for being funny, but in this episode, his dramatic acting was incredible, I thought. Like, really, really good. Mm-hmm. Again, just as good, if not better than Adrian Palacki and Chad Coleman. He's just incredible. And I'm not sure who the director was of this episode, but they made the right choice to focus the camera on him during those really dramatic scenes. And, he was perfect. He didn't break character at all. I thought he was really good. He outdid himself, I think. What do you guys think?
Oh, yeah. The interplay between everyone was outstanding. And I don't know. I can't rate who was the best actor in this episode
Right.
between the three of them.
Oh yeah.
And acting
they're all
tour
great.
de force.
Yeah,
Tour de force.
I agree.
And Topa as well. Topa did a fantastic job. I don't know who you mentioned the actors' names. I don't remember them obviously, but he did a fantastic job as male Topa. I don't know. It's everything about this episode impressed me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the tears they didn't feel forced. When Clyden didn't cry, but when Bortus cried because he just didn't know how to help. This episode I found was full of people who didn't know how to help themselves and needed help from other crew. So like Kelly goes to Mercer, and Claire is also in the room. She's like, I need your help. I don't know what to do. I need your guidance.
That was a good line. I'm glad you pointed that out. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and it was great. And that was the point where I was like, oh, Adrian Palacki's here to play. Like, I mean, she's always been here to play, but like she's always kind of like this funny, serious character. Mm-hmm. It's like when they do an episode with Riker and Riker's super serious, and you're like, oh, okay, put down the popcorn and the laughs are over. And then when she after the blow up with Bortus and Clyden comes and threatens her, and then next comes after that she's in her office and she's like kind of like unzips her jacket trying to get comfortable, and then Bortus comes in and pretty much is like crying. Mm-hmm. And all she does what is not usually seen on television, which is she just holds his hand and doesn't offer any words. She just comforts him. Mm-hmm. Because there's always this weird thing where they have to have dialogue. But in like, what do you do in this situation? You just listen and you help where you can. Mm-hmm. She's already helped where she could, and then that's it. So what else? Yeah. Oh, and even Topa the character asking for help, like pretty much just crying for help at this point. Like were the two scenes that were cries for help, where she's telling Kelly she doesn't know what's wrong. She's like, I don't know. I just feel unfulfilled. I don't get it. And then she all but asks Isaac what death feels like.
Mm-hmm.
Like, were you... And then when she was like, oh, I wonder what she wants. I wonder where this is going. I hope she's not asking about whether or not the world would be better without her. But she is in a way. And then she asks him if he was unhappy to have been brought, like, reactivated. Or brought back online. And he's like, well, I'm a computer, so I don't feel happiness or not. But then the fact that Isaac immediately went and told Kelly.
Mm-hmm. Which brings up another hilarious moment in this otherwise dramatic show when he says, I know that, personal interactions not related to work can cause people to speculate. Would you like me to announce right now that this is not a romantic or a sexual encounter? No, it's fine, it's fine. But again, it didn't.
Don't do that.
Yeah, just don't do that. But it didn't stand out in a forced way. It came logically out of the situation, and it was really funny.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was great.
There was another really funny. Okay, so when she was kind of showing Topa around the ship, and she was like, "Oh, there's a lot of things that I have to deal with as the first officer, and a lot of it is like culture clash." And they go into engineering, and one of the engineers, they're like, oh, thank God, Kelly, you're here.
Forgot about that, yep.
I'm just trying to find the actor's name or the character's name. But she goes in, and there's just this fully nude character, because in their culture, on the first of the month, it's an affront to their god to wear clothing. Mm-hmm. So... She's like, okay, just like put pants on. Like, we can come to an agreement, just put pants on. But like, he's standing there fully nude. We don't know what that species' genitalia looks like, but
right.
We can imagine that it is probably off-putting, since just as off-putting.
Every other part of this creature was a little off-putting.
Yeah.
Right.
Everything from the waist up was a little disturbing.
Yeah. I mean, he had like a really nice blue gradient. I really liked the color. Again, the makeup in this show is phenomenal.
Yeah.
I can't believe it. But yeah, I mean, they just really spared no expense this season.
Of course, that scene led to another scene that I kind of went like, come on, guys, you got to try better than this. Because as soon as she's like, hey, buddy, you can't be naked. You have to wear a uniform. Put some pants on. Then they flip to engineering, and it's like Yaphet is right there. Like,
I know. I was thinking that, like,
put another scene in between.
You're
like,
right.
nothing. Yeah, that was a hilarious scene with Mr. Religious Naked guy there. But and I get it. Yaphet doesn't wear a uniform unless it's a spacesuit.
Yeah, which is hilarious.
But put another scene in between there, so I'm not thinking about it, right?
Yeah, I was thinking the exact same thing.
Yeah.
But
again, not a complaint, just a suggestion.
Right. Now, so again, what we should say is that there have been a lot of people criticizing the season, not enjoying it as much. I mean, even on, like, I follow two Facebook pages on Facebook, the Orville in brackets Hulu, and then just the Orville. And both of them have been very negative comments. But with this episode, the praise seems to be universal. And I mean, even though we've only had 5 episodes so far, and I personally, out of the 5, I really thought one of them was terrible, and the other ones were fine. I thought the first episode of the season was actually really good, one of the best. But we all agree that it's lacking the humor, like, of the first 2 seasons. Whether or not that's good or bad is, your own.
That's still a complaint that I have even about this episode. Mm-hmm. Now, I mean, like this was a brilliant episode. I'm not gonna walk that back, but I still miss our old Orville, and
Yes.
I would have appreciated a little bit more humor sprinkled in, and because I know that they can do it. I know that they can succeed at it.
In the first 2 seasons, there were serious episodes. If this season was dropped into the middle of season 1 and 2, do you think you'd notice that there wasn't as much humor, or would you just think, oh, this is a serious one, there shouldn't be as much humor in this episode?
This episode was strong enough that I don't think I would have noticed the lack of humor to the same degree as some of the other bad episodes from earlier this season.
Right.
But everything else about this episode was so strong that it. As I'm watching it, I was thinking like, okay, I'm feeling better about this show now, but I'm also thinking that I am looking at it from a different side than I would have the first couple of seasons. Like, I'm looking at it as being a different show now.
Sure.
And it's turning into a show that I enjoy. But it's still not the Orville as I first was introduced to it.
Sure. Jolie, what do you think about that?
Oh yeah, I absolutely agree. I feel like this is the step that they maybe needed to have taken after they killed Isaac. After they had Isaac kill himself very dramatically in that first episode. And this is I feel like this is where Fox interferes a lot, and maybe we could have used a little Fox interference. For this one at least, where they like shuffle up all the episodes. It's like, yeah, maybe this should have been the second episode.
You could be right. You're right. Sometimes the order definitely feels weird with the sequencing. I don't know. We did talk about how the first 5 episodes were finished before the pandemic hit. So I guess next week we're gonna see if there's been like a drastic change in the style. But yeah, you're right. Even with these first 5, this one could have been flipped around, definitely.
I mean, I know that, like, if you follow Seth MacFarlane on Instagram, I'm just going to change the subject a tiny bit. But I know that, like, he knows that what people are saying. Because even he was like, okay, guys, guess who's on next episode? And it's just a picture of Yaphet in his Instagram story. But, like, yeah, I feel like he's not, like, totally listening to us, but the messages are getting through. Again, I say that about mixing up the episodes, but how much would that have helped really? Because then we would have just went right to dreary again.
Right. So yeah, I think it's okay the way they spaced.
And we also would have gone right to, like, another thing that I liked about this episode is that people are softening on Isaac again, right? The Orville crew, they're starting to come around, and at the very end of the episode, Isaac and Claire are going out for dinner, so he's becoming more of a likable character.
Yes,
and I think that after the first episode, we probably needed a bit of time to sort of process that, and for the crew to process it. I mean, at this point, I think if that was the very next episode, people would still be a little about the whole Isaac situation. Yeah.
It's like, well, Kalons are still pursuing literally everyone else in space, so still hate the Kalon. Oh, okay. Also, if we're gonna, okay. I know how we love to talk about things that are funny, and like, yes, there were moments of hilarity, but I still don't feel like they were season 1 and 2 hilarious. Does anyone feel like the energy level of the humor is not like...
Well,
of course,
I think that, I know what you're saying, like, even when it's funny, it's not as funny, but I thought this episode, the jokes that were there were as funny, yes. Like, the ones that we've talked about, I thought were all, like, season 1 level funny. It's just that there was only 2 or 3 of them.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
I agree with Mike on that, but I also agree with you, Jolie, that, like, despite the fact that the jokes were as funny as they would have been, the entire vibe is such that even funny jokes don't land as well.
Yeah.
Right? Like, everything is so serious and pensive now that when you throw a joke in where it would have just flowed naturally with everything, now it's kind of coming out of left field at you. And you're like, oh, where did that joke come from? Oh, that's right. We're watching the Orville. I forgot.
Yeah.
I'll give you that.
They're not having as easy a time sort of meshing the two.
Yeah.
The drama and the humor.
Yeah, I'll give you that, because there was one time in this episode where Malloy said something and it was meant to be a typical Malloy joke, but it just felt not right. Do you guys remember that?
Yeah. There was
it on the bridge when Bortus was talking about bringing his, what's it called? My A game?
Yeah. Yeah, like, you saying it was funnier than the way it landed in the show. It was like, oh no. You know what it's like? Unfortunately, I know that, and I don't want to be a naysayer, and I know they're only in season 3, but it's like every show, every time you have a property that's lightning in a bottle, there's always a point where it reaches where it's past its peak. And I'm not saying the show's past its peak, but it's the feeling that we're trying to describe here. Okay, I'll just say it, the Rolling Stones. I love the Rolling Stones, but every album after 1973, no matter how good it is, it's not just that it's good, it's that, they recaptured the magic for that one song or that one moment or that one riff. But no matter how good it is, it's still just trying to recapture that old magic. And it feels like with the Orville, it's like, oh, look, they did something as good as season 1 and 2. Oh, they did it again. But the jokes, it's almost like, it's like you said, Ian, it's like the vibe is off. And so I'm sure they could fix it, but at this point, it still feels like maybe season 1 was a little bit too goofy and now it's too serious, but season 2, they got it perfect. Maybe that's it.
And it almost feels as though they're overthinking it. It's like,
Right.
Not like they're trying too hard, but that almost like they're conscious, they're self-conscious of what they have to do.
Right.
And by being self-conscious of it, they can't do it.
Yes.
But they're trying, and you can tell that they're trying, but you can also tell that they're self-conscious.
Yep.
And it makes you feel a little awkward when you're watching it.
Yeah.
Because you have this sense not of what you would do, but you have this sense of how you expect to feel, and you don't feel quite like that. And it kind of feels like there's someone kind of staring at you, and you're just a little awkward and uncomfortable. And it's just a little weird little vibe.
Yeah, there was a good Malloy moment that blended seamlessly, which was he was sitting in the doctor's office and he had a bubbly face. And Kelly was like, Kelly went in to get the doctor to get her opinion about Topa. And obviously she saw that. She's like, well, what's with him? He's like, oh, he's a child. That's what's wrong with him. Like that, I feel like that is kind of where that the humor is going. And to me, the casual dialogue and like the familiarity and making fun of each other because they're family and crew is kind of, that would be a nice logical place for all the humor to go. Because like, let's face it, Malloy may be a great pilot, but he's a stooge.
Yeah. So here's the thing: is I just want to. Another thing I posted on Facebook was I think that with this show, there've been people who I try to convince to watch this show, and they're like, "Oh, I hate Seth MacFarlane. I'm not going to give it a chance." Even Red Letter Media, like Mike Stacklasa, said something along the lines of, it looks like TNG, it sounds like TNG, but I think he said something like, I feel like I'm looking at a picture of a meal I want to eat, but I can't actually eat it. And I feel like at this point, at least with this episode, the show is just as good as TNG at its best, I think. And at least in this episode, and in many episodes. But do you guys agree that in season 1, sometimes it felt like, oh, this is a good version of Star Trek. It's a funny imitation of Star Trek, but now I feel like they really outdid themselves with this episode and how they handled this topic. What do you guys think? Jolie?
Yeah. guess we're all looking at me. Oh yeah. Well, I didn't. Yeah, I guess it's become something else now, though, and that's kind of the thing. Like it's become. It can hang with the big boys now. Sure, it can hang with Star Trek at its best. Mm-hmm. I wasn't ever really expecting it to, though. Mm-hmm. And that's not why I was watching.
Okay. Well, see,
and again, it's fine, right? Like this episode is great. I'm going to watch it again. I'm really happy that I saw it. It encourages me for the future. But it's not the Orville. It's not the reason why I started watching it, was to watch this. It was to watch something a little bit different.
Yeah.
See, I guess I'm coming at it from a slightly different angle because although I do love the humor of the first 2 seasons, I think the reason I watched it is because I hate new Trek so much that when I saw this, I'm like, oh, this is Star Trek. Like, this is what I want out of Star Trek. And I was getting like 30% humor, but I was also getting 70% good modern Star Trek. And so to me, this continues that trend,
Mm-hmm. I agree with that last bit about it being good modern Star Trek, but it also wasn't anything that I was looking for either. I I wasn't looking for like a replacement or a wholesaler for Star Trek in my heart, because I was watching Discovery and somewhat enjoying it, and watching Picard and like not really enjoying it, but hanging out because I like Patrick Stewart.
Yeah. Look at Ian's face. Yeah. If only our listeners could see Ian's face right now. But anyway,
it's all
quick, take a screenshot.
Up. It's all
a screenshot. Don't take a screenshot.
all, yeah. Let's see. However, I'm also I'm thinking about that thing that Mike Stoklasa said where he's like, I'm looking at a big piece of cake or a meal and I can't eat it. It's like, well, you have to reach out and grab it and put it in your mouth, though.
He didn't think of that. Well, the thing, yeah, and I just feel like I wish I could. I don't want to keep going on about the show, but I feel like saying to everybody, will you watch this damn show? Like, it's so good. Not every episode's good. Oh, this is the other thing I posted on Facebook. I put something like, yes, I know that the Orville has had some bad episodes, but just like Star Trek Next Generation, it's come back. And I said, in fact, Star Trek Next Generation has a group of episodes that were really bad. I call them all of season 1 and 2. Like, you had to wait like 50 episodes to get to a good one. So let's be patient with the Orville, okay?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yes. No. That's the thing. Star Trek: The Next Generation at its worst is far worse than the Orville at its worst.
There you go.
Like, there's no argument there at all.
Yeah.
None.
All right. So on that note, should we wrap up this episode?
No, let's keep talking for another 40 minutes.
But we haven't talked about the A story, which was Charlie Burke runs around in an old temple.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Charlie who? What?
Which is actually a problem that I have with this episode. Cut all that out. Right?
Yeah, and I should point out,
you don't need any of that, and it had no bearing on anything. There was no resolution to it. All it served was for a vehicle for another ship to show up, for the admiral to come and yell at the captain on. That's all that was. And another line from Charlie that made me dislike her character even more. Oh, just follow the trail of breadcrumbs, sir. You'll be fine. Like, come on, stop it.
You know, okay, first of all, this is the longest episode in the entire series history. So, yes, it is too long.
And that also follows that this is the longest episode of MORE-VILLE, Orville in history. So
Yes. And you're right. It's like with Charlie Burke, you're like, what is she? They can't figure out what to do with her. And you're right. It's like she keeps making herself more and more unlikable.
Right? And now she's an archaeologist? Like, is she using her four-dimensional math skills to open up this tomb?
I already forgot about that ridiculousness, but whatever.
And then she skins her knee for some reason. Did that have anything to do with the plot? I don't
The thing is,
know.
yeah, like, you know, everyone knows that in most TV shows for network, they usually cut things. In this show, there was a line of dialogue. It was, I don't think it was there, but it was somewhere else, where I felt like I was watching it, and I felt like, I'm like, you know what? If this was on TV, they would have cut that one little exchange because it doesn't lead anywhere. And it feels like now that they're on Hulu, they just leave everything in, you know, which isn't always a good thing, obviously.
No. It's almost as though they're showcasing the length as being, this is a positive no matter what causes this length.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it means that we get more of a show that we love, but like, do we really need more? Is the question. Unless these, I guess they're called Hemblocytes, who have been, their species is gone. Like, they had to reconstruct from DNA. Cool. Are they telling us something? Like, why keep this in?
Right.
If this is, are you telling us that perhaps they're going to give them some kind of exploratory spin-off? I freaking hope not.
You know what? Actually, you raise a good point, because when a show is this good, it deserves more scrutiny. And since the rest of the episode is so good, like if it was just an average episode, you can kind of like, who gives a shit if it doesn't all fit? But this episode is so good that it makes you analyze the pieces more, and you go, you know what? This doesn't fit. This doesn't fit. And if they cut all that crap, it would have made the episode even better. And the fact that we haven't even mentioned it until now, and that I completely forgot about it, means it obviously wasn't important. Because I actually forgot that subplot existed. I forgot until just now.
Yeah, and someone's like...
And they open the episode with it.
Yeah.
They open with it.
And she's like telling them about the ancient Egyptians like it's freaking Archaeology 101. And Malloy is like, wow, you sure know a lot about this. And she's like, well, I'm an enthusiast. And it's like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I didn't care. You're only here to hate Isaac. Why is there this much development in your character?
And she didn't hate Isaac this episode. She did like no Isaac hating at all.
Uh-huh.
She did barely any. Oh, actually, when she stood away, when he sort of like, when they're trying to trip the trap to get inside the antechamber of the not the Egyptian tomb. Mm-hmm. When he was like, I suggest you step away against the back wall. When she stepped back, she was smirking, but like, when is she not smirking?
Yeah. Well, anyway.
Do not like.
Yeah, so, okay, so I think we should wrap it up. I guess that's it. Next week, like we've pointed out, and it's funny because I haven't heard anyone else talk about this, but I can only expect there'll be a slight change in the format or the style of the show because the rest of the series was filmed during the pandemic. So we'll see if it is a change. Maybe there isn't a change. We still haven't seen...
all the characters will be wearing masks for the rest of the season.
Including Goffet.
Yeah. There you
He'll
go.
be back in
love
his
to see
spacesuit.
Oh, geez, what was I going to say? I lost it. It'll come back to me. But anyway, yeah, I'm looking forward to next week. We'll see how it goes. Like I pointed out, they say that they filmed the characters in chronological order for the whole series. We'll see if that actually happened. Maybe that was just a misinformation, but I am excited about this week's episode, and I'm excited about the rest of the series. And I've heard rumors about the way the season ends, and I don't want to talk about them or confirm, or I don't want to speculate. I just like to leave things, as they are. So we'll see how it goes. But we still have 5 more episodes, and I'm excited.
My excitement is also palpable.
All right. So there you go. Okay, I guess that's it. I want to thank G.I. Jolie and Champion for joining me.
Thank you.
You can find every episode of MORE-VILLE Orville at www.comicbooksyndicate.com. We review every episode in chronological order, 1 episode per episode. There you go. Join us every week. We got 5 more to go for season 3. And so until next week, there's more where that came from.